right, hi everybody. Thank you so much for coming to the Mayor's Wellness Council meeting. And this is our 6-week series on health and wellness. My name is Lucia Carinante. I'm gonna look a little bit, here's our camera, and then our guests, and then the TV. So there's many topics I'd like to discuss. A couple of things first. I'm a certified nutrition coach, certified personal trainer for over 20 years. My passion is to teach people and educate all things health and wellness. So in our series, we have many topics from exercise and movement, building muscle, the importance of reducing processed food, protein intake, stress reduction, connections, meaning relationships and how important that is for our health, believe it or not. There was a huge study about that. But today, I'm going to start with sleep. Why am I starting with sleep? Well, I feel that it's overlooked in terms of investment in our health and plays a critical role in so many different functions of our body, which I'll discuss. Some of those are immune function, brain health, emotional regulation, etc., many more. So I'd like to start with why that's so important, and meaning people think they can catch up on sleep. People think, okay, the weekend comes and I'll sleep in, but actually that's not how it works. It's more about the consistency of sleep. And it is a biological necessity, just like drinking, eating, nurturing our bodies. So from a public standpoint, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention actually identify sleep and insufficient sleep as a health concern, major health concern. And it can lead to, as you see up on my slide, high rates of heart disease, diabetes, obesity, depression, and cognitive decline. I'm going to talk about children also and how it impacts our teens, really important. I remember when my children were young, I read an article in the Times about toddlers and teenagers and how they actually need the same amount of sleep because of the brain's development. So anyway, let's move on to why it matters for our brain, our mood, and just in terms of functioning every day in our life. So poor sleep leads to big problems, meaning that you might have a bad night's sleep, and some of you can relate to this, and sort of wake up feeling like, oh, I have so much to do, or the weight of the world's on my shoulders. And yet, those problems aren't really as big as you think. It's that the sleep deprivation drains our brain. Kind of like your brain doesn't have the ability to think clear, to focus. Because while you sleep, your brain restores. So old cells go out, new cells come in, and the brain repairs itself. And what happens is if that's not going on a consistent level, just like exercise, you have to be consistent with it. Just like nutrition, you have to be consistent. The bad night sleeps, and I'm sure everybody can relate to, add up. And then your focus isn't there, your patience, sometimes your judgment, your ability to judge things logically can decline. So it's really a neurological response. And I just want everybody to understand that because it's really a very serious thing. The nervous system. So we have the fight or flight nervous system. Everybody's heard of that. And back in the day of, our ancestors, we were in fight or flight when we had to, run from the lions or the tigers or whatever was chasing us. Right now, it seems that in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, the introduction of so much social media, which has been going on for a while, we're in fight or flight a lot. And our body's not meant to do that. It's only meant to do that when it's necessary for survival. we need to be in rest and digest, which is the parasympathetic nervous system. And sleep is what helps that. Sleep is what promotes that. So chronic stress can be what happens when we're deprived of sleep, because it keeps the cortisol high, which is the main stress hormone in our body. It keeps it elevated. So when that happens, we're sort of edgy all the time. I'm speaking for myself because this happens to me too. Especially women after menopause or during menopause, our hormones change, men's hormones change too, but our sleep is really seems unstructured for a long time. So I'm going to get to the things that we can do to help our body stay in a really much better way of resting and sleeping. Even when sleep doesn't come easy, there are things that we can do to help those at those moments. So as I said before, when we sleep, the brain processes our emotions and it consolidates memory. Another thing is growth hormone is released, which is really important for muscle, which is huge for one of the topics I can't wait to talk about, because I don't think people know enough about that, but we'll get to that. But the growth hormones released supporting muscle and tissue repair, which is, if you're working out and lifting weights, we need that. Also decreases the inflammation in our body, which is responsible for our, joints. It's responsible for illness. It's responsible for everything that, is health related. So we want low inflammation. Also, our hormones reset and our immune system functions and improves. And even when you think about it, if you get a really good night's sleep and you wake up the next day, it's almost like you're Superman. For me, I feel like I could do 1,000 things so efficiently, and when I don't sleep, I feel like I'm just gonna crash. So how much do we need? So this is controversial in my opinion, because I know a lot of people, I've been doing this a long time, and I have people that tell me they could sleep 4 hours, 5 hours, and they're fine. So the CDC recommends 7 to 9 for most adults. And they also say that it stays the same as we age. However, there's more research out now that says everybody has some, sweet spot, so to speak, for sleep. And I think it's individual, and I think it's about the quality of sleep. So having said that, I don't want everybody to get stuck on, oh my goodness, I have to get that in, and then that causes more stress, right? So we don't want that. We want maybe think about what time you go to bed and what time you wake up staying the same. That's something I'm going to get to in terms of consistency. But even though the CDC says this, science, there's new things coming in all the time. So again, if you're a person that sleeps 5 hours and feels great, don't get stressed about that. Think about how you feel throughout the day. Think about how efficient you are. Think about how productive you are. Think about your mood. And those will tell you if you're sleeping soundly and well. So again, going back to the deprivation of sleep, it's not just about being tired, right? There was a landmark study published in 2017 that found that sleep loss activates brain cells, chronic sleep loss, that are responsible for cleaning up. So there's something in our bodies called autophagy, which is when cells are pushed out, the old cells, and the new cells come in. So the brain does that too. And if you have chronic sleep loss, over time, it will prune healthy connections, causing the brain to actually eat itself. So it's not getting the new cells. So it's destroying cells. So without the proper rest, that cleanup system doesn't function the way we want it to. This shows up in neural loss, reduced synapses in the brain, slower thinking, and emotional instability, and a lot of other things. So we want our bodies and our brains to function as efficiently as possible. Again, this is biological, so I want you to understand that. So another thing that a lot of my clients ask me about often, and it's your blood sugar, cravings, why does this happen? Why is my A1C high? If you're not sleeping well, yet you're eating, you're doing well with your nutrition, your body can actually hold on to fat. So because of that, we might have something called insulin insensitivity. So your body's not using insulin properly. Again, I don't want anybody to get stressed. I want you to just think about the importance of sleep, going to bed at the same time every night and waking up at the same time every morning. Notice this, when you are sleep deprived, you crave carbohydrates. Because the brain is looking for something to feel good, because we're stressed from not sleeping, believe it or not. Blood sugar then becomes a little bit more unstable, which can create some crashes in our energy. So again, these are all biological survival mechanisms. It's not like willpower isn't part of this. I don't want anybody to feel bad about it. I just love to give you the information, and you think about it and you move along in your day as the time comes that you have to start thinking about, okay, it's time to shut down. Going back to the cravings and how it affects our bodies in terms of holding on to fat, that again will have people have less muscle, more fat, gain weight, because fat storage is it's increased, and then muscle breakdown happens. So sleep is essential for all these things in terms of if you're going to the gym and you're lifting weights 3 to 4 days a week, which is crucial in my opinion. Next, that's another topic. But if you're not sleeping, your body's not going to get reap the benefits of all the work you did to build this great body, because your body can't repair. So sleep is about repair. Sleep is about restoration. You have a question? Oh, I thought you said something. I'm sorry. And you could jump in anytime, Debbie, if you have any questions. So stop me. So we've kind of talked about this already. I have a couple of things that might be redundant, so excuse me. Okay, so I'm going to move on. So this is really interesting to me, because I don't think people realize the factors that are involved in disruptions of sleep. So there's so many challenges in our busy world today. Society's changed so much, and I feel that we don't realize the amount of stress that we put on ourselves just with these phones, these tablets, television, right? When we were younger, I'm speaking about you and me, Denise, because we're about the same age, there were a few channels, right? We couldn't stream live television. We couldn't stream anything, right? We couldn't binge watch. I've seen it so often with young kids that I work with even every age. I shouldn't even say it's young kids, but young kids are impacted because it starts out so early now in their life, that when you're in front of these screens for too long, for extended periods, it's already disrupting your ability to relax at night and your ability to sleep. So some of those disruptors create more of an emotional overload, and the phones and the screens at night are just killing people. The blue light the light into our eyes, I don't think people understand the impact of that. I hear so many people sleeping with the television on or falling asleep scrolling. So I want to impress upon everybody here that's listening or may watch later, if you could shut that down 3 hours before bed, it would be ideal. Some people say 2 hours is okay. I really like to push it a little bit, because this is serious. And it's like eating before bed is also disruptive. Even drinking before bed is disruptive. So you want about 3 hours for everything to be shut down. So you sort of start to create a routine where relaxation is now what is surrounding you in your environment, whether that's a book, whether it's listening to some music. whether it's maybe a puzzle, anything that's calming. I would meditate. So there's one thing that's really great that I think people should know, and I'm sure lots of you have heard about breathing. So there's a breathing technique, I think it's 478. I'm going to double check it, but Dr. Andrew Weil created this for the Navy SEALs because of their job and what they have to do. Their heart rate has to be really low to be calm. So when we sleep, our heart rate has to be about 60 beats per minute. If you wake up in the middle of the night and you do a breathing technique, 478, breathe in for 4, hold for 7, exhale for 8. Few things happen. You stop overthinking, because sometimes when we sleep or when we wake up, it's because we're thinking and we're overthinking. We have so many things to do the next day. Just the breathing will stop you from the thinking, and because you're counting. So doing that 10 times in a row will get your heart rate down, it relaxes you, and hopefully you just can fall back to sleep. So I wanted to add that in because I'm talking right now about the phones and the screens at night, and most of the times that's what people are doing. And even when you wake up, and I know this because I hear people talk about it, they grab their phone and then they start looking at something. Even if they've slept for a couple of hours, the phone is always there. So I want to stress, I'm talking a lot about it because these things are not good for our brains. The other thing is drinking wine. A lot of people have a glass of wine at dinner or a drink, and no judgment or anything, but that's going to disrupt you because alcohol is, it's a depressant, but it's also a stimulant. So it'll relax you and then it'll stimulate you. So some people say they need that little glass of wine to relax and go to sleep, but just so you know, it's going to wake you up later. So that's another thing to keep in mind. And as I said earlier, the inconsistent sleep routines. I know sometimes we have parties or weddings or whatever, special occasions, but if you can stay consistent and sleep go to sleep at the same time every night, about, within a half an hour, and wake up the same time every morning, that's going to start to help your body adjust. And sleep will become, hopefully, better for you. These factors is about realistic change. So again, if anybody has questions, pop in. Okay, so this is what I'm really interested in this. I've always been interested in this since my children were young. How teens and youth are affected, because sleep for them is a magic bullet. Not sleeping enough as a teenager can permanently damage the child's brain's ability to think. And again, when I was a teenager, we didn't have what we have today. I know from my own children, they're older now, but video games were there, so we had to put restrictions. But today, I just think it's more and more, there's too much leniency on it. It doesn't make sense to me. And I know that some of you might have older children, some maybe young children, maybe your grandparents. You could pass the word around. The teenage brain is still under construction. So the frontal lobe now, they don't even think fuses till 26. Again, that means the brain is still developing. And during adolescence, all these wiring systems, they're responsible for so many things in terms of decision-making, emotional control, focus, and memory. So kids go to school, right? They might be up till, I don't know, midnight, playing video games, talking to their friends, texting. That's going to affect them the next day in school. Denise worked in the school, I'm sure. Denise, you saw lots of things like that when kids are not at their best. And we think, oh, okay, maybe little Susie or little Johnny's just acting out. But a lot of this has to do with sleep. And there's studies that show that. So this is all things that I've researched. So I don't want you to think just talking. So when teens don't sleep enough, the brain will skip these developmental steps, and neural connections that should strengthen might not form. So they're pruned away permanently, just like I talked about earlier. And it's worse for teens because the teens' brains are starting to build executive function. And if that's missed, then that brain is setting up for stress. And the scary part about that is even when sleep improves in adulthood for those teens, sometimes cognitive deficits will still remain. So I just want to stress that a little bit more than anything because, the kids are the next generation for our world and we want them to be healthy. And we want their brains to be working at full speed. And we also don't want our kids, and we see this too, a lot of anxiety and depression amongst kids, amongst teens. And a lot of this might have to do with many things, but sleep could be one of them. Sleep could be one of those things like the magic bullet, as I said, where even if students or young kids are struggling in other areas, if they're getting a good night's rest, that could help them, right? Just think about that for a second. So if you can't fall asleep, let's say you're awake for more than half an hour and it gets really frustrating. So you might want to get out of bed a little, for a brief period of time. Keep the lights low because what happens when the lights get into your eye, it tells your brain it's time to wake up. So we want to always keep it really dark. That's really important. Get out of bed briefly, walk around a little bit, do something calming, maybe stretch a little bit, maybe just walk around, keep the lights low, then try to get back into bed. So while we're talking about this, why you can't fall asleep, melatonin is the hormone that helps us sleep. That's responsible for that. So people take melatonin, and I'm not a medical so there's no medical advice, but I wouldn't take it. Why? Because it's a hormone. Even when young girls take melatonin melatonin has been studied and it interferes with fertility. So taking it, not when our brain makes it. How does our brain make it? So in the morning, my advice is you wake up, you go outside when the sun is rising, look on your phone, see what time the sun rises, see if you could get 15 minutes, no sunscreen, no glasses, try to get your skin exposed. Melatonin starts producing at that time of the day. Additionally, when the sun is setting, because of the different spectrums of light from the sun at those two times, that's when melatonin is going to get stored for the sleep. Melatonin, as I said, is a hormone. Also, if you take it as a supplement, it can interfere with medication. So look that up. In Europe, I think you need a prescription for melatonin. So it's not, I know lots of people are always taking melatonin, little gummies or little pills, but it might not be in your best interest. So like I said, the way to get it is the sun. Don't be afraid of the sun when it rises, when it sets. Of course, if you're on the beach, you cover yourself up, but the morning and the evening, sunrise and sunset. Other things you could do, as I mentioned earlier, if you wake up in the middle of the night, is the breathing, the 4-7-8. If you want to look that up, Dr. Andrew Weil, W-E-I-L, W-I-E-L, I have to check. But he created this breathing technique because, again, our heart rate needs to be 60 beats per minute for us to go into that sleep state. Another factor that I like to mention is the temperature in your room. If you're sleeping with the heat above 68, I think that might be problematic for some people. You want a nice cool room. So that's another thing that you can focus on when you're trying to make those choices and create a consistent routine. So just a few things that I mentioned. That's really important though. Okay, So we just talked about the consistent wake up time because that anchors the circadian rhythm. This is all the melatonin, the not eating before 3 hours before bed. Again, if we go back to the cavemen, our ancestors, we ate before the sun was setting. So it's ideal, even though this is different society, different world now, it's ideal to try to eat earlier than later. Again, I just discussed the morning sunlight helps regulate the sleep-wake cycle, so we understand that. Caffeine, we talked about that. The cool, dark room, we talked about that. So, some other things that help. Would you like to sit down? Okay, sorry. Some other things that are really important for sleep is muscle repair. So you could see here how many things are affected. Muscle repair, because it brings blood flow and oxygen, nutrients to the muscles, while the growth hormone is increased, and we talked about that. The cell regeneration, we talked about. Immune function, this is sort of like a recap. Waste clearance. And if you think about this, again, I said this earlier, think about how you feel when you don't get enough sleep. Memory consolidation, hormonal regulation. Now, there's different stages also. There's the deep sleep, which is primarily the stage for tissue growth, muscle repair, growth hormone, and REM, which is for emotional processing, memory, and brain activity, similar to wakefulness. But it's hard to know what stages we're in, but it's just something for you to understand how important the sleep cycle is in our life. Let's see. So I did give, Denise, take one of these packets. So Debbie, I think there was a link on the Zoom, and it sort of follows everything I discussed. I want you to, I'm just gonna grab it, sorry. I want you guys to, no, you got it, honey, you take it.
I'm printing it.
Oh, it's okay. So it has some space on the bottom I left so that you guys could actually keep a little journal. This kind of can give you some hints on what's going on. So if you are really struggling, it's good to track how you feel. It doesn't have to be good, bad, no judgment. Just notice when you don't sleep well, what happens. So there's on the audience follow along notes. If you don't have it, I'll have Alana send you a link again. But what happens? How do I feel after a good night's sleep? What tends to keep my mind or body activated at night? These are little sort of self-awareness questions, and you're following up only with yourself. So if you get a little journal, it'll be a great thing for you to do to kind of keep track of the changes. Because if we're gonna try to live the healthiest life we can and be productive and feel good and move well and keep our weight at what it should be, then sleep is the foundation of that. So we have to get this down as we move into all the things that we want to do to stay healthy. It's not hard. I know even when I'm speaking, it sort of sounds overwhelming, but it's not. It's just one little step at a time leads you to success. So I had somebody once ask me a question about nutrition and exercise, and they exercised once a week and maybe they ate healthy twice a week, and how is that going to work? It's not. So it's just like this with sleep. So if you get 2 good nights a week, it's not going to be the best thing for you. The other thing is thinking about all the illnesses that we don't want in our life, in our body. Sleep is, we talked about earlier, the best thing that you can do to repair the body. So eating, I'm backtracking, your body will now have to digest. So if you eat too close to bed, your body can't repair because it has to digest foods. So I want that in everyone's head. So we have, there's a couple of other things regarding sleep, the emotional brain and the rational brain. And we want those systems, the limbic system is the emotional brain. When we're not sleeping well, that doesn't work in sync with the rest of the body. So you really want to understand that these things are so crucial to having regulation in your brain, and that signals to your behaviors, right? So that's pretty much, I think I said mostly everything, but does anyone want to ask anything or add anything or anything?
Well, I'm going to try that breathing.
Okay.
What happens with me?
What happens? Tell me what happens with you.
Well, I wake up and I can't fall back asleep, so I'm going to try that.
So can I ask how old you are?
65.
Okay, so you're around our age. So a lot of that could be hormonal, right? It also could be melatonin. So I would get up in the morning and I would go right outside. If you have to go to work in the morning, I don't know if you're retired or you're working, but if you could get just 10 minutes of sun, if that you start to do that, but the breathing is key because, like I said, it's going to slow down your heart rate. It's going to slow everything down in your brain, all the thinking that might be coming in. I don't know. You might have things, some of us are overthinkers, or you just might have a busy life. Try that. And I'll get your email and I'll send you my email. You could send me feedback because I'd love for people to just let me know, what helps, what doesn't help. And waking up in the middle of the night is really frustrating because then you feel so unrested the next day, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, do you have any questions, Debbie?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, how did you feel? Did you get enough information, Denise?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of good information.
Yeah.
I totally never realized melatonin was a problem.
Melatonin is a hormone that regulates our wake-sleep cycle, but taking it, then the body doesn't make it because you're taking it, so it shuts that mechanism off. So sunlight is what gives us melatonin. Sunlight is important for cellular function. Sunlight is important for your eyes. It's important for staving off disease, so many factors, and sleep is one of those things. So the sleep-wake cycle, your circadian rhythm is all, I want to say monitored, but that's not the right word, regulated through that. And the other things, not eating late, not drinking late, not coffee. Just so you know, caffeine stays in your system for 5 to 6 hours and has a half-life of, I think 3 hours or something. So like, even if you drink coffee like midday, it's gonna affect you. So it's an important thing to know so that you know what you're doing. And if there's a day that happens, okay, no big deal. But more information, this is my philosophy and what I've done for 20 plus years, is just educating. I don't tell people how to live or what to do. I want you to get all the information so that you make the best decisions for you, for your body, for your health, for your life. And then hopefully you feel great every day. I think that's it. I know we said an hour, but I think I covered a lot. And since there's not a lot of people here, maybe that's part of it, not a lot of questions, but thank you so much. Thank you for being here, and I'm looking forward to next time.